Okay, I've been having this fantastic conversation, ongoing actually since a couple of weekends ago when I was driving in my car with Marla, and I kind of feel like I don't want to make you feel bad or anything, but I feel like I'm kind of talking to my sister.
I
You know,
agree. I completely agree with
I mean,
that.
that was like the energy I'm having. I think, well, she's part of the family,
Yeah.
so anyway, for those people that I imagine there's probably 3 or 4 people in California that don't know me or know you, and there's probably maybe a couple hundred people in the world that don't know you, obviously, because you're an international star and author and and all that stuff. But in all seriousness, I will post a whole who's you on the bottom of this thing so we can kind of get away with something. But you're an actress for about 20, 25 years.
I was. Yes, I was. I no longer do that. I left in 2002 when all of this other stuff just sort of called me and said, no, can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I was just talking to you earlier. I was just watching you on the Diagnosis Murder or whatever that show was with Dick Van Dyke, and I go, yeah, I know her. Anyway, let's go back to this thing though, because we were talking earlier, and I'm gonna throw a theme out, which
Okay.
I kind of know where you're gonna go because you agree with me on this. Everybody that I've kind of met on this spiritual journey, I mean, the people that are I considered the advanced party, the head of the line here, kind of the people that are really working at it. The prerequisite seems to be a crappy childhood, uh, and having parental issues, when they were growing up, and not being fully hugged, not being fully appreciated, not being fully validated. And I've noticed that it's almost 100%.
Well, I do know that there are some people out there that didn't have the kinds of backgrounds that you and I had. However, this is what I want to ask you, because this is an interesting conversation. When was the first recollection of you as a child that knew that something was wrong in the family?
Oh, right away. I mean, yeah, 2.5 years old. Yeah,
Okay. So
it was.
the,
Yeah,
the point about that is, and this is what's interesting for our listeners and our viewers and those who are coming to All Souls in November, that dynamic proves to me, and it might be something that's interesting to you too, how would we know that something was wrong unless we had lived a previous life and known that something was wrong, that something was going on in our family that wasn't right? How would we know that? So I really do think that it has to do with our reincarnation ability that has happened over and over and over again, because how in the world would we know?
yeah, we don't come in a blank slate, according to what a lot of people think.
Well, of course, a lot of things hurt. I mean, nobody likes having things done to them, but it wasn't until I started going out across the street and being into other people's houses that I went, nobody else is sticking, a whole spoonful of pepper into their children's mouth like my mother did me. I was like, whoa, there must be something else out here. So you and I both went into the church.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if experiencing that at that young age, meaning everything after that's uphill, it's got to be better, right? But I think it creates this inward looking, this inward growth.
Yes. Well, what I love about that is there is a part of us that has to go inward and touch base with what we're listening to, right? Even at that very young age, we don't know what we're listening to. But on the other side of that same coin, for me, it was something that I learned with Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton was this DNA determinism guy that basically taught on the medical school level. He wrote Biology Belief and a number of different books, but he was saying that he thought as an adult that it was just the DNA. But then he started doing stem cell research and found out that it was not just the DNA, it was the environment, Bill. So what I did at a very early age, and maybe it was spirit, maybe it was the Holy Spirit working through me, or just my own cognition being connected to source, I was out and across the street. I was in the woods. I was down at the farm that my father had bought. I was in the church. I was singing in the choir. And I noticed very early in kindergarten that if I was on stage and my mother was watching me, she was lit with joy. So on some level, I thought, oh my goodness, I have to become an actress in order for my mother to love me and possibly not hurt me. And that's exactly what I did. So listening to consciousness, asking for help, praying, God, help me, aliens, come abduct me, whatever, come get me.
All right. So you're young. Well, younger than today. All right. That's hard to believe. But anyway, as a child,
Yes.
when did you start to realize, or maybe you did at that age, that you had some gifts that weren't necessarily like other people had? When did you start to experience things?
Well, the first thing that happened, and believe me, just to back up before, and I'm making a sort of a blanket statement here. I didn't believe in these things until much later. I didn't grow up being a medium. That happened later on when I was stalked by someone and my antennas went out of my head, and it was a dead person that helped me with law enforcement. So that wasn't until the mid-90s. So the first inkling that I had was interesting. I was sitting at my next door neighbor's kitchen table. It was right before Thanksgiving. And the woman, I was waiting for my girlfriend, and her mother plopped a bowl in front of me and she said, break up this bread. And I'm looking at this bread, and all of a sudden, Bill, my eyes went blind to my present circumstances. And my mind had bilocated to the hospital parking lot and saw this woman, Anne, her boyfriend, with a nurse. And he was telling this nurse, I don't want to be with her anymore. And I certainly don't want to give her a gift for Christmas. I want to be with you.
Yeah.
So I told Anne this. I was like 8 or 10 years old. And this is what happened. So needless to say, that was the first piece of information where I knew, oh, how strange, something like this could happen. And I still will go blind to my present circumstances to give information.
All right. So you're a child, you grow up. I'm assuming you were the typical cheerleader, prom queen.
Hold on.
Nope, you weren't?
Majorette.
Well, that's same.
So
Same.
Oh
same,
no, different thing.
You're leading the parade. You're leading the parade. Come on.
Yeah, okay, I led the parade,
Yeah,
but
come on.
no prom queen, nothing like that, But I mean, thank God, because I had a wand. Oh my goodness, here's a makeup brush. I had a wand. Here's my baton. I had wands and I was flailing them all over the place, making things happen. So I think that that's kind of fun, don't you?
Sounds magical.
Well, nothing.
All right. Let's get down to things, because I heard rumors that you see dead people. You see dead people.
I hear dead people. Sometimes I see
people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So you were working with I'm assuming Chicago police, LA police, or some police department. Where was that at?
Well, I was out, all of it started happening after I left the Midwest. I was doing a lot of stage working as an actress, and I came out here to, have a career where I was going to make good money, which I was fortunate to have that happen. But it was because of a stalking incident. Someone came after me. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? And so I ended up having to go to law enforcement to get them to help me. And I, in turn, within a year or two, was turning around and working on homicide cases for them. And then it started going around the country because PIs would hear about me. And then I was trained by the US military psychic spies. Those are the remote viewers in Project Stargate. Lynn Buchanan, there was Joe McMoneagle, and other people who were doing that work that broke off in the mid-90s when the team disbanded and went out into the world teaching laypersons like myself. And thank God I did, Bill, because I actually thought that when this whole thing was going on with the stalking incident and what I was seeing, hearing, and feeling, I thought I was crazy. So I did all the due diligence. I went to doctors, I went to neuroscientists, I went to clergy. And you know what the clergy said? I love this. went to the Catholic Church across the street. I went to Agape, the big spiritual community. I went back to the Lutherans. I went to the Methodists. I went to the Jewish temples. And here's what they said: God works in mysterious ways.
The answer to everything, right?
But I'm really glad I did it, because I had no reference for this. It was just something that was very important. And then I started studying more remote viewing and started working with a physicist 13 years ago, Tom Campbell, who basically is an author, NASA guy, who was also developing the binaural beat system along with Bob Monroe at the Monroe Institute. So I've been following the science of this for a long time as well.
Well, so there you are, minding your own business, acting. That was your job. That was your career.
It was my job. Yeah,
That
I did
was-
a job.
That's your paycheck. That's
Yeah.
your money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of a sudden you decide, I mean, that was a big, bold move. Why you decide all of a sudden you were going to go and do this other side of yourself?
Well, Bill, I think that you and I both understand, since you are my brother from another mother, we understand that how these things are divinated, how these things come to be, is a very interesting, circuitous, this person and that person and this person. And I was on set doing a Captain Crunch commercial. And just to let everybody know, when you're chewing, when you're eating the food, you don't swallow it all the time. You turn and spit it in a bucket. So I was getting ready to do this commercial, and my fake husband for the morning, he and I were meeting for the first time. And remember when I said I went blind to my present circumstances? That happened on set when I was getting ready to shoot this commercial. And I saw this baby's room, and everything was so serene. Here I am in the middle of a sound stage with all these bright lights and everything. And here I am just zoning out into this baby's room. And the room was blue, and there was a, what do you call those, mobiles hanging over the bassinet. And I heard, I'm so glad I can see my grandson. I'm so glad I can be with this baby boy. And he said, oh, and I'm Fred. And I was like, whoa, this was so amazing, because I heard, hey, Marla, are you ready? Are you ready? It was the director. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? So I leaned in, and Mike, who was my husband that day, I said, Mike, do you happen to have a baby boy? And he said, yes, I do. And I said, well, I've got somebody named Fred who's trying to tell me. And he goes, oh my God, that's my dad. I was so upset that he wasn't here for the birth of my child. I said, oh, he's all over this. So that's what we did for that commercial. And I just thought, this is more important than, I mean, I love this work and I love my job, make good money. This is more important. So I started doing this work, and my agent called me one day and said, hey, you missed your call back. And she said, I don't know what's going on, but you need to make a decision whether there's something in your life that's more important. And I said, yeah, there is. So I left.
So you really truly followed your heart. I mean,
I didn't hear that. What?
truly followed your heart. You just went with it. It wasn't premeditated. It wasn't a plan. You just went with it.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, people, talk about charging for this. I think it's very interesting because if I had I don't know, a trust fund or something, I probably wouldn't have charged either. But I also have learned that people need to pay for services, interestingly enough, whether it is a donation. I mean, I do pro bono, especially for law enforcement. But the dynamic of this is, I got divorced, I left my husband, and, I had to take care of myself.
No, I found out something in my old age, one thing anyway, because, I'm always giving everything. You give somebody a free book of yours because you want them to read it. You come back a year later, they haven't even picked it up and broke it. You can look at the pages, they never even opened it. It's like if someone has value to them,
Yeah.
there's been an exchange. They bought the book, they're going to read it, they spend some money. So people don't quite get that, but it's like I got a lot of young people that are doing these things, and people say, well, they charge, and you don't charge. I said, well, I'm retired. I got everything paid for. I have enough. I'm not rich, but I made up my mind a long time ago. I have enough. But if I had to take care of children and house payments and car payments and, put my kids through college again, no, that's a whole different thing. So at some point, you do what you got to do. But once in a while, there's somebody comes to you, and even if you're going to do them pro bono or free, I always leave the door open if they want to gift you something. I don't care if it's a puppy dog or they're going to do your yard for you free, or eggs, or whatever. Because when I go to India, I come back with all kinds of interesting gifts, because they show up here, have this. I mean, they want to. They know the value of giving something in exchange.
Of
It
course,
doesn't have to be money.
well, and that's very interesting too, because here we are, we're going up to Lake Geneva in November to be with an amazing group of people. Some of these people that I've met, and some of them I've been in awe of for years. So this is a wonderful opportunity. But we're all there to share our abilities that have various different resonances for people. I'm so grateful that my book came out in 2018 called American Psychic. That's the book of my background, which basically is the journey. And I know that you can appreciate this, Bill, because it really is. I wrote the book just like the reason you did. I wrote it so that somebody else could go on the journey and see themselves. I wrote the book so that they could go, well, Marla's such a dumbass. If she can survive, I can too. So I wrote the book so that people could see that there is this amazing thread of spirit, or what I have now, because I've been working in science with all of this, is consciousness. I've been working on the elements of all of these incredible things, understanding that we are literally being listened to. And it's not an organized religion. It is literally a system, God, spirit, consciousness, that has been helping us, guiding us, whether it's the experience packet that we were born with, with our DNA, with all the opportunities that we have. But it really is, it all boils down to love. And that's what the people who are coming to our event in November are there for. They want the connection of loved ones. And Bill, when we talk about my history and our history, that's one of the reasons that dead people are so important. It really is healing both sides of that veil. Because when I'm able to bring someone in from the other side, who you might not want to talk to little Susie that lived down the street. But if Susie, violated your car when you were 16 and she wants to apologize for it, it's just going to happen. And I've had perpetrators come in and people not really ready for that, but it shifts their lives in tremendous ways. So this is the generational healing that I do, that I believe that is much, much, much more important than just, having it out with relatives. I mean, we can have it out with relatives for days, but when you get an opportunity to talk to a deceased loved one, they too understand what we're going through. They feel us, they understand, they see us. And it is the opportunity to heal both sides of that veil.
That's interesting, because most people don't see that, that it's a balance. They're healing on both sides. And people have to realize on the other side, the learning's not over.
Right.
Karma,
Right.
lessons. And I mean, and I know, you die, you're not automatically a saint. You still got the same baggage, except now you realize, oh, I'm never going to die, but I better deal with this, right?
I'm sure Mother Teresa had her issues too when she got over there to the other side. I mean, look, we all have these incredible lessons. And as long as we are healthy enough to stay here, to experience them, it's going to happen. Oh my God. Yeah.
So what are you looking at now in your life? You're at that place in your life. We're both baby boomers, so we're probably down to our last decades, decades.
Yeah.
Decades, me, make it to 89 or so, I'll be happy. But what do you see now as your purpose? Let me ask you this. What you saw as your purpose 10 years ago, if you're evolving, it's probably not the same purpose you have now
Well, it's interesting because 10 years ago, I was getting ready to launch this book. I was finishing up the book and I launched it in 2018. And it was an incredible experience going back to my hometown, going into even Chicago. And Jen was so amazing. Jen took me up to Milwaukee, where I had some wild experiences too. I lived with the mafia when I lived in Milwaukee. Anyway, but I went to all the places except for Cleveland. I should probably go to Cleveland now, but I got to experience doing groups of people, whether it's a small theater or just groups in people's houses, as well as them read the book and remember things in their own life. So I had this international book tour that stopped with the pandemic. And the pandemic is interesting for all of us because those of us who've had COVID had to go through some physical symptoms that we'd never experienced before. We have to strengthen our body. We have to look at what I actually think COVID was about. I think that COVID was about giving us an opportunity to think of others, not just ourselves. And
Put a lot of lives on hold, and people had a lot of time to reflect.
Yeah, well,
a alone time.
A very interesting. It's a very interesting experience. The consciousness of a virus, the consciousness of the medication that can help us, the consciousness and the sophistry, which is arguing for the sake of being right with lies. So we've all gone down that path. And it doesn't matter which side you're on regarding it. It's just something to think about. And if we choose love, then that's pretty much a straight path. And taking a look at that, we're all dealing with it every single day.
Yeah, a lot of people make fun of me lately because the last year or so I've been on this, what they call brotherly love. Reverend Bill's out there, brotherly love. I'm just getting a nickname.
It's wonderful.
You know what it was? I went online and then I saw this song, brotherly love's, revival and all that. And I go, oh, but I didn't take it as an insult. I'm going, yeah, okay, I can identify with that because that's what it's really about. And if you're doing this kind of work, which is basically, that's all it is, just love, and it's just shared in different ways. You and I are helping people in different ways.
Yes.
And I noticed that a lot of these people that are coming to our Old Souls weekend, because I've had conversations with them, there's that underlying current of love and service.
Yeah.
They may use different terminology, they may use different methods, but basically everybody's trying to be a part of the solution, part of the basket of love. They want to be in that basket with.
Well, and I think that that's so wonderful. And we all have our own different ways of doing things. And what that does is it teaches those people who are interested in the work, because once again, I wasn't walking around doing this work until the mid-90s. So I didn't know what was going on. And I was plopped in James von Prague's house. That's another story. But he literally had to prove to me that I was a medium.
Talk about that. You got perked my interest on that.
Well, this was what was so interesting, that, I was working a lot as an actress, and that whole stalking thing made me really have to go inward and focus and feel crazy. And, working with law enforcement. And then all of a sudden, a girlfriend called me and said, I can't get together with you this weekend. I'm going to see James von Prague in Sedona. And I'm like, is that guy? I was literally watching him on TV. Is that short-haired guy with the mustache and blue eyes? And she goes, yes. And I said, well, he's on my television right now. So basically she said, I'm good friends with his personal assistant. I'll call you when I get back. And that's when I had a dream. I went to see him. I went to go see him to see what he did, because I thought, oh, I'm a snarky little, I wanted to be my own journalist in my own way. And I was going to expose him and do all this kind of stuff around it. And I went in there and I was so deeply moved. And I went home and got down on my hands and knees and said, oh God, I don't understand what's going on with this stalker. Help me with this. And could you please help me understand this whole psychic thing? I don't know what this is. And that's what happened. The next day, I heard this dream. In that dream, it was the center. That dream that night. And I spoke to my girlfriend the next day about James von Prague. And she said, that's so fascinating. She told him my dream, and within the next day, I was in his house. He too had been having the same dream of the center. And I stayed with him for 3 years. I was a volunteer. I watched everything. I saw everything behind closed doors. And he puts me in this class, Bill. And basically what happened was, excuse me, he blindfolded me. And I thought, well, I don't have anything to lose. And all of a sudden, I'm in a kitchen, just like I go blind to my present circumstances. I was blindfolded. I'm in a kitchen, and I'm this brown-haired woman, excuse me, brown-haired woman, and I'm running around and I'm baking something. And then this woman shows me a box. It's a tie box. And I'm like, what is this? And then she shows me her silver ring like this, and she goes, two. And I thought, I don't know what this is, but it's amazing. So what basically it was is a man in the group stood up and said, yes, that's my wife. Her name was Mary. And Mary used to give me a tie every birthday. I didn't understand that. It was a joke. And then it was the birthday cake. He said she wasn't much of a cook, but she did this every year. And yes, both of our rings are made from silver, a piece of silver. And I thought, this is real. This is real.
So you get your validation.
Yeah, that was it.
Wow.
That was it. Yeah. So now we do this. I do this my way to help others, and you do it yours.
Well, you know, I don't think either one of us had a design plan and sat down. I didn't outline any of this. I don't outline the next couple of months. I got a couple of events. I don't know what happens with you, but somebody will contact me and they'll go, are you coming to New Mexico? And I go, why? You invite me? Well, yeah. If you got a place and you got some people, I'm there. Make arrangements. Boom. Next thing you know, I got airline ticket taken care of. I got a place to stay and I got a date. And I said, okay, I'll be there. Right. Yeah. Probably people are setting things up for you. Hey, would you like to come to Chicago? Like, things happen. And I'm really at the point now where I don't plan much. I leave my schedule pretty much open. And I literally go with the flow. I'm assuming you do as well. But people come into your life. Obviously, a lot of people have come into your life in the last couple of years. I mean, you've met some interesting people. I mean, your relationship with Jennifer, right? And
oh, yes,
and Amy,
absolutely.
all these people.
Well, and she came out here for a particular reason, and neither one of us are friends with that person anymore that she came out here for, but that's okay. We made this association, and I call Jen the Barbara Wawa of woo-woo. So I really do think that there is a show for Jen someplace out there in the world because of her skills and her ability to pull people in, handle the content, and also write the books about it. It's been quite extraordinary. So through Jen, I've met wonderful, wonderful people. And also the element of working in science with Tom Campbell and his group, My Big Toe, The Theory of Everything, which is his book, that's kept me international for a long time. And that is with science-based people who are learning how to do what I do because Tom's been teaching them that for the last 10 years. So that's been amazing, helping left brain people access deceased loved ones, access future probable databases. I mean, the dynamic of the science of this continues to roll out in a most interesting way.
Didn't you get involved with him writing some kind of 60-page thesis or?
Yes, I did. Thank you for reminding me of that. After I'd written the book, I had found out that Robert Bigelow, who was an aerospace guy who had also been very interested in aliens, decided he was going to put out a contest for the best information of or evidence of life after death. Well, there are numerous groups out there that have been doing research about this for years. And of course, there were scholars, PhDs, who have dedicated their life to doing it in a scientific way. I'm just my own laboratory, but I wrote a paper, a 60-page paper that basically the top guy who won was Jeffrey Mishlove, and he has a wonderful podcast out, New Thinking Aloud, but he loved my paper so much that he wanted to talk to me about it. So that continues, and I'm actually extrapolating on that 60-page paper for another book.
Sounds like a good basis of it.
Yeah, it's yeah, the work continues to evolve, and it's all about the love.
Yeah, I'm finding talking about evolution. I'm finding that the people that I hung around with 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, high school, whatever, my my time with them, I don't fight with people say I'm never going to see you again. But it seems like as you move and change your frequency, other people move and change their frequency in whatever direction they're going. But just because you had a lot of time together at a certain decade of your life doesn't mean it's forever. You just move on. I mean, if you meet them, it's cordial, it's nice, but you don't go out of your way. But it's just, if you look at it, you go, wait a minute, I don't hang around the same people. I don't have the same hobbies. I don't do the, you're moving. And I look at that as advancing, because if you're still in the same box since high school, same friends, same everything's, nothing's changed, same thinking, same church, same beliefs. Well, you haven't explored. You haven't let yourself shed your skin and
Well,
grow.
it's that whole thing about the environment. You have, in order, if you want to change, you have to go to a different environment. That's the whole dynamic around this. Traveling helps people understand things. It helps people understand that there are people of different color that aren't problematic, and they're in your life every day, and they're huge, and it's a necessity. And all of these different people in the world, they can only enhance you unless you're frightened. So yes, we've learned that, of course, from traveling. For various years. But I think the dynamic, Bill, that you share along with me is we have to want to be better. There's something inside of our soul that calls for that. And we might not even know what it is. I mean, I'm still connected to my hometown in Pennsylvania. And there's still people there that still live there after all of these years, which I just adore. But unless they travel, they don't get to see things and experience that a group of people that they might be frightened of, there's no reason to be frightened of. So the vibration that you speak of is something that I hold in my heart so delicately, because between children and ex-spouses and ex-partnerships, and when you were asking me, what am I focused on? For the last 2 years, I really understood something that I hadn't in a long time, which was an idea about partnership. I hadn't dated much since my divorce in 2009. So I was like, hey, this is fun. I know, I kind of like this. This is kind of fun. So that's part of my issue right now, kind of going, well, how much time do I want to spend here? But it all boils down to, we spend time with people who we love. And I can love somebody that I've never met. I can just feel them. I can watch somebody on a television program, and actors are actors, they are acting, but they would not be able to do what they do unless they had that inside themselves. Sometimes an actor has to play these very dark roles. Well, you and I know that there's darkness in our childhood that we can move through our bodies. And I think that was a saving grace for me, to be able to play aspects of my mother that I didn't want inside of me any longer, which was really interesting. So all of us who are wounded, all of us who are those gentle warriors that are trying so desperately to heal their dynamics, when we have the intention, we find a way.
And the strong ones, we are warriors. And because I talk all the time, spiritual warrior and all that stuff. And some people don't get it, because I'm not talking combat vets, and that will be some veterans, that's some warriors. When I talk about warriors, I'm talking about warriors of the heart. People, no matter what happens, let's move on. Let's pick it up. Let's get off the floor. Let's move. Let's find something positive from this. Let's find the gift. Let's move. Let's solve this. Let's not be bitter. Let's forgive.
Yes. Well, and Jen's been doing that within being a focal point for the Spiritual Social Club and that community. She's been making that happen in the best way possible that she can, giving people a hub to come to, whether it's a live presentation or the classes that she's been facilitating, all of those things are happening. We just have to find a way to feel what feels right for us. Oh, Jen, how amazing. This is a wonderful opportunity. Somebody in New York. Oh, that sounds like a great thing to do. So we are all being led by what feels best, right? And sometimes those feelings, we don't understand why we want to go to, I don't know, the middle of Timbuktu, but there's something that calls us, and we go there and we find out why. So it's listening to this internal dialogue of consciousness, spirit continuing to work through us, using us as bright lights, and sometimes even dim shadows, just to be helpful.
But what do you find an inspiration in your life? Books, let's say, or movies or whatever. What's been your big inspiration? Who's been kind of a unofficial, they don't even know it, spiritual coach to you?
Well, that's a really wonderful question, because I've also been tangentially connected to this UFO, UAP, alien.
Oh, wait. That's a subject I never go into, but I'm the alien. I've been abducted, me and my sisters,
Well, this is the thing that,
I never talk about that, but
this is a whole other show.
that's another whole show. Yeah.
That's a whole show.
Yeah.
But
I believe.
All right. But I think that, okay, so good. I'll interview you about that. Because I was a radio host on one of the top paranormal shows for 10 years, which is unknowncountry.com's Dreamland. And and of course, talking with George Noory on Coast to Coast. But these elements that have happened to us, we might have the opportunity because nothing happens in the government. They're not going to give you anything. They're not going to give you any money unless there's a threat. So what just happened with the congressional hearing was just enough threat from the military that it makes them warrant setting up an agency so they can hear people like us, civilians, who have had experiences. So when you ask what is an inspiration, I look at that and I think, wow, consciousness is trying to get our attention. How else but put a crop circle in the middle of nowhere out in England? How else but have these incredible UAPs that are going on around the world? One of my dear friends, Chris Bledsoe, is starring right now tonight on the last episode of Beyond Skinwalker Ranch on the History Channel. For the last 15 years, he's been having interaction with this phenomenon that's been going on. He's the most humble, faith-based, incredible man. He's like Tom Campbell, and he has 0.02 ego. So he is starring tonight. This is the last episode of that particular show tonight. And it's in his book, UFO of God, is out there. So however this comes to us, we do our very best to stay within the integrity of it, tell the truth, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, to show how consciousness moves us forward. I'm not going to be judgmental about movies that move people, because anything that you need to see, whether it's sex trafficking to help us understand what's going on out there in the world, but we have to legislate women's body parts being taken care of. Women need to be protected. There's so many things going on in the United States right now where those rights, of course, are being challenged, not only challenged, but young girls at the age of 13, 10, 12 are not being protected from rape and incest. So we have all of these terrible things that are zooming around us, right? But if our intent, if our heartfelt intent is to help change that, then maybe we become a part of a group or a movie or a conversation like my friend Chris Bledsoe is leading through his book that is out there, or this show tonight. But my bottom line is to be curious. It's not to decide, oh, this is wrong. No, it's be curious. Find a way to be intellectually stimulated by what's the evidence. Oh, there isn't a lot of evidence for that. But there's a new committee in the government that's going to take our information, those of us who are civilians who have these UFO experiences, so that it is cataloged. And maybe that's the way to be more understanding, because I don't want my ego to pretend it knows more than it does. And I think that that was my whole snarky attitude when I didn't believe in talking to the dead, when I thought I was crazy, all of that. It's our experience changes everything.
Experience trumps reading and listening to somebody else. It's you have something happen and you try to
Right.
tell somebody about it. It doesn't make them enlightened. It may inspire them for a while. That's why sermons don't change people. You might inspire them, and then after 20 minutes later, an hour, next day, they're still them.
Yeah.
So my thing is, I'm telling these wonderful stories. I inspire a lot of people, I'm told, but now there's a part of me saying, okay, you read the menu. I want to teach you how to cook that meal and
Oh,
eat
I
it.
love that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So now that I got your attention, so that's why my next book it should have been done last year, but I keep rethinking and going someplace else with it, because I'm really thinking, don't inspire, give tools. You can do both. There's always people have learned from stories. I mean, being an Irishman, we're nothing but stories, but stories will only take you so far. It's like even in the primitive cultures where the shaman, he'll tell a story, but then they sit there in a circle and they meditate together for 2 or 3 days, right? It's the meditation on the story that changes them, not the story, right? So with your new book coming and my new book coming, I think you're aiming at getting them to think and to focus scientifically. And I'm saying, okay, I've led you with my heart, but now I want you to learn how to do that yourself. So now I'm going around doing these self-healing workshops. I don't call them Reverend Bill's going out and healing workshops. That's just a bunch of ego. I mean, God heals, you heal. If you don't want to be healed, you're not going to be healed. If you want to get healed, nothing will stop it. So it's always you. You are the healer, you are the guru, you are the teacher. So that's what I'm trying to do out there. And people fight me. It's like, no, you healed me. I go, everybody wants to credit something outside themselves.
Well, I think that is really interesting. And that curiously is around the science realm around this. If there is a way for consciousness to affect matter, which is what determinism and materialists are very scared about. And that's why they don't have anything to do with God or anything that's woo-woo for them. But if you're capable of doing that, which there are countless exercises out there, the double slit experiment. I mean, you're shooting some photons through 2 slits. And if you don't look at it when it's happening, there's a certain pattern that goes on the wall. But if you do look at it, there's another pattern that is established by looking at those photons. Then you know that there's something about consciousness affecting matter. So it is my experience through working with Tom Campbell's group and everything, that even in a prayer, even in a prayer dynamic around healing, we just focus loving intent on a list. I could put your name on, Bill M, and the list. There's a location for you. The source knows who you are. So the dynamic of just focusing on the list, holding the highest intention for someone's good, holding the blessing for healing, holding the space for healing. And our bodies do know things. My goodness, how the human race has existed before penicillin or anything like that. Our bodies know what to do with things. Food, we've been eating food, all of that stuff. So with that loving intent, we're capable of creating, oh my goodness, my soreness went away. Or what happened to me in PT this morning, where I had, some great PT guys working on this elbow of mine. And I'm like, I'm feeling strong just from being in there for two hours. Help me, help you, help you, help me. And I think that is the key for us being healthy, happy, our country being good. And I'm just thrilled to spend some time with you. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, actually, when we're in Wisconsin, Lake Geneva. And I told this story a couple of times, but I really thought I was going to Switzerland.
Good
Yeah,
for you.
I'm there. I'm on board. Pack my bags. Yeah.
No problem.
But Wisconsin is almost as good as Switzerland. Come on.
It's a wonderful state.
Mountains aren't as tall, but anyway, so I think it's going to be a beautiful thing. The people that are presenting, I think that's the best, only word I could come up with, presenters.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's a better word for that, but there's a unique array of ways that people are slicing this thing. There's a little different energy. There's like, we're tuning forks, but everybody's like their own little vibration going. And as somebody pointed out to me the other day, yeah, well, not everybody's going to be in tune with everybody. So if you have multiple people there, like at this event, well, then we got a good chance of having somebody there for everybody.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely. And we are used and facilitated in various ways. I'm sure my information will be different than someone else's, but somebody's going to get it. Somebody's going to be helped in this way or that way. And we're all going to be there. So yay.
all right, is there some last pearl of wisdom that you would like to?
My wisdom is literally choose love and be curious. That's about it. Just be curious. Be curious why someone is saying what they're saying. Oh, that's interesting. Be as neutral as you possibly can. Even if you have an opinion about something, just be curious. Like, why is it that I hear something that you don't hear? Okay, I'll do my research. I don't care. I don't need to be right. That's the thing. I don't need to be right. If I look at you and I see a hip problem on the left side or something that's going on.
Yeah, actually, yes.
Yes, well, I can feel that. This is how I work when I work on a Zoom with someone. I mean, I can feel that, but I'm not working with you right now. And I know that somebody's completely invested in communicating to you and loving you throughout your process. And we'll talk about that another time. But we have these abilities. It's a choice. Choose love. Be curious. And thank you.
Thank you. Now you hang on. The rest of the audience is going to get the curtain closed here, but backstage we will talk. So thank you for letting me interview you. Before we go, your website is?
Marla Frees, MarlaFrees.com. Then there's the book website, AmericanPsychicBook.com. And I think, if you Google me, I'm all over the web. And I think 99% of it is true.
This one's practically, we're purified. This is all good. This is certified by Reverend Bill.
Yay. Thank you, Reverend Bill.
I'll be seeing you. Don't go away. And
Okay.
we'll put a stop